Comic book movies in the 21st century have followed a pretty basic course. For the 2000s, there's plenty of good stuff that came out, some of it really successful. For the 2010s, they're a box office behemoth, dominating the decade. For the 2020s, they've become a pale shadow of what they used to be, desperately trying and failing to recapture that financial and storytelling magic, but mostly just looking ever more sad and pathetic. The Old Guard came out in 2020, so it's just on the cusp of the change of decade and the post-Endgame decline. There's definitely elements of the 2010s, lots of things that are a success. There's also a lot it gets wrong, a lot of similar mistakes to other 2020s flops like The Eternals or Thunderbolts. Let's talk about the good stuff. The opening scene is great. We see Charlize Theron lying on the floor, seemingly dead, and in her voiceover, along with the subsequent action, the premise of the movie is swiftly and efficiently established. She and her group of friends are functionally immortal. They can technically die, but will spontaneously come back to life. Theron plays Andy, Andromache of Scythia. As the oldest immortal, she's the boss. There's Joe and Nikki, who met almost 1,000 years ago on opposite sides during the Crusades. And finally Booker, who joined them during the Napoleonic Wars. The group use their gift to try and help the human race wherever they can, but want to ensure their existence remains a secret, something that's becoming ever more difficult as the pace of technological development accelerates. As we see the build-up to and aftermath of the opening scene, the Immortals discover that they've been set up. Someone knows about them. They need to track down the man who gave them this job and find out what's going on. At the same time, the Immortals discover a new member has joined their group. The standard method that this happens is they all dream about the new member. At the same time as finding who is hunting them, they must find this new immortal and help her adjust to her new life. In many ways, the Old Guard is a lot of fun. Following the ambush, once the Immortals reanimate, Andy whips out this massive double-headed axe and uses it to start dealing with the soldiers. This is entertaining. I think Charlize Theron is good as an action star. I really liked her in Atomic Blonde and particularly Fury Road. Her character also gets some backstory, with the discovery that the regeneration from injury may not last forever, and that immortals can get lost along the way. This adds some interesting depth to the concept. Sadly, the concept is also kind of the downfall of the movie. Outside of the main character, the opportunities and challenges of functional immortality are suggested in a very shallow way. We see Joe and Nikki, whose romantic relationship is strong, but the movie doesn't go into much depth on what it might be like to have a soulmate you live with for centuries. On the opposite side, you have Booker, only about 200 years old, but alone for most of that time, without the intense emotional relationship that Joe and Nikki have now, or that Andy used to have. Then there's Niall, the soldier, who is the new member of the group, and her struggles to accept what's happening. Highlander, for example, made an entire movie out of just the Niall storyline. The ideas behind Joe, Nikki, Booker and Niall, they're interesting, they're fertile storytelling ground, but there's no time for any real exploration of them. You could have a story that's just an excuse to explore Joe and Nikki, or just to explore Booker, to compare and contrast their experiences. Or you could have a story about a new member of the group. Or you could have a story where the group track down an existential threat. The movie tries to combine all of these, and in so doing, doesn't do any of them in enough depth. Maybe a comic book or a novel or a 13-episode series would be able to balance these and explore them all sufficiently. A 2-hour movie doesn't come close. There's lots of really interesting references to their past adventures. Andy being worshipped as a god, that time in Malta, 1834, the Quinn storyline. It all kind of left me feeling I'd been shown some interesting ideas, but left unsatisfied on any of them. Like this particular story about being hunted by the pharmaceutical company should maybe be the 3rd or 4th story about the Immortals, not the first one, it's a bit too soon. It's a good existential threat, even if Interview with the Vampire once had a similar idea. The problem with the pharmaceutical company is it's just kind of boring. Particularly the action scenes are just really boring. The camera's swinging around the whole time. The choreography is just kind of... Charlize Theron looks good, but everyone else, it's just kind of like they're hitting a mark rather than actually getting into it. We get a subplot about how Andy's immortality might be over, but it has no tension because she's the main character and this is the first movie. The biggest mistake? Probably the villain, Stephen Merrick, played by Harry Melling. This guy, he was in The Queen's Gambit, he was Dudley in Harry Potter. He's supposed to be a menacing CEO determined to use the Immortals for medical research. He's just no threat. He's badly miscast. He's wrong for the role. I'm sure he's a wonderful human being. I'm sure he's got many positive qualities, but he's woefully poor in this movie. Combined with the bad action sequences, it makes the last 20 minutes or so really dull. To sum it all up, the old guard is a real mixed bag. Lots of interesting ideas, no time to really look into any of them. It's all just a bit of a lost opportunity. Thanks for watching.